Welcome back to the Real Power Podcast. I am stoked for today's episode. I got a very, very talented businessman, entrepreneur, sales professional, all the above. This is going to be an episode that is going to help me because sales is something I'm not great in. I'm trying to get better in. Sales is something that is so extremely important to any organization, any young entrepreneur trying to start whatever business they're doing. So the man across from me today is going to help bring a ton of wisdom to all of you watching, all of you trying to level up your sales skills. So I got Pat Fenton across from me today. Pat is the Executive Vice President of Retail Sales at Revolution Mortgage. Pat spent 22 years as a sales and motivational speaker in the mortgage and real estate space, with the majority of his career having been spent helping salespeople and leaders elevate their levels of success. In 2019, he joined Revolution Mortgage, and in 4 years, he led the company from $300 million to $4 billion, a now top 50 lender in the country. Like I said, I want to make this kind of a sales masterclass for the people.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to bring to the table, let's do it, man. Pat, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Cam. You know, as I thought about your audience and, some of the things that you wanted to cover today, and some of the things I think would be valuable to your audience, the older I get, the more wisdom I get, the more I realize that the fundamentals of things, how simple success really is, that if you can get yourself doing the same things over and over and over every single day. We've all heard Michael Jordan talk about just valuing the layup, practicing the layup, practicing the foul shot, and enjoying the practice of doing that. Matthew McConaughey gave an incredible, one of the best graduation speeches I've ever seen. And I forget what university it was. It must be University of Texas. Maybe it wasn't. But if you haven't heard that, go to YouTube, pull up Matthew McConaughey graduation speech. But in that, he talks about when he was struggling as an actor. He said, the shift that I made, which got me all the Emmy Awards and all his accolades and all the money that he really wanted to fulfill his goals, was when he started enjoying the day-to-day doing of the deed, the practicing. The practicing of the scripts and how he was delivering the script. And when he started to shift from making that a means to an end, I got to do this so that I can perform and make money, to shifting it to enjoying practicing, that's when his career took off. And, early on in my career, when I thought I was going to be a football coach, deep at heart, I'm a football coach that realized, hey, unless I want to move 16 times, and then once you get a good paying job at the SEC or the ACC, you better perform. Or if you're not the head coach and the head coach gets fired, that means you're wiped out. Yeah. You got to move your family. I just thought, man, this is not really what I want for my family. Let me go into sales. And by the way, everybody's selling. Every single day, moms are selling their kids to do their homework, right? And everybody's selling. I don't care if you're a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, everybody's selling, right? So learning how to sell and learning really what that means is super important for everybody, no matter what their profession is, teachers, lawyers, you name it. So what I decided to do at 23 was I better get some help, because I was given a phone book, I was selling cell phones, and I figured, you know what? No one's really teaching me how to market myself. I went to college, I played college football, I had 100 friends, I had a network, but how do I make sales? And what do I say? What's the process? And I really didn't have management, didn't have leadership early on. It was given a phone book, and I was taught what most organizations do, the product training and just the process training, right? Mm-hmm. But really nobody was really guiding me. So I figured I better go get some help. And I was networked through a guy. The one sale I made early on, which pretty much I gave him a $700 phone for free, so it really wasn't much of a sale. But the caveat was, if I gave him that phone for free, I would sell everybody in the office. That just came natural to me to do that. And so he introduced me to a guy named Joe Gianni, who had a company called the Professional Sales Institute, which is now called 2 Logical, the number 2 Logical. And so I met Joe, and he grew up with Boomer Esiason in East Islip, Long Island, really gregarious guy, but he had an aura. Something was different about him. So I started probing after selling him a cell phone. That was the entryway. Get him a cell phone, save him money, and find out what he does. But he's my personal coach and mentor, and I think he can help you. I think I had $310 in my checking account, okay? Just starting off, I had $1,000 a month salary and was making like $100 every time I sold a phone, right? And so, needless to say, I sat there, and as Joe was telling me what he did, and he trained salespeople, he runs this national sales training organization. I asked him for help. I said, is there a class or course that I can take to get going? He said, yep, there's actually a module called The Art of Referral Prospecting.
Okay.
He goes, the cold call numbers are 110-1. Dial 100 people, get a hold of 10, get one booked. You get 10 of those, you sell 1 out of 10. It's a 1% rule, right?
Yeah.
Cold calling. And so he goes, or you can do 10-8-7. He goes, what's that? He goes, call 10 people that know you or know somebody that you got referred to, and get 8 of them on the phone and book 7 and sell half of those. Those numbers sound a lot better, right? He goes, I'm going to teach that course. I said, how much is it? He said, $200. Okay. So I wrote a check, and he saw my balance in my checkbook because I was sitting right next to him. And he saw that I was willing to write him a $200 check.
Almost all your money.
Yeah, I had on. This is a very true story. And so he paused and he looked at me, like, this guy values education. And so when I showed up, he actually gave it to me, the course one-on-one, because I think he was starting to recruit me for his organization. And so in that course, the first thing he said is, now what I'm going to ask you to do is, it's not going to sound comfortable to you. He goes, you're going to fight internally to actually do this on a call, because I'm going to teach you to ask for referrals, even from people that don't buy from you. Which I'm like, yeah, that sounds not normal, right? Because they didn't buy from me. Why would they recommend me?
Right.
So, he was big on scripting, and thank God that I learned from him early on. And so he had a referral script that I was going to ask people for 8 referrals on a call. So if you ask for 8, you'll get 4. If you have 4 a day and you run 2 appointments a day, that's 8 referrals a day. You're now calling all referred leads every single day. Your closing ratio will be very high.
Yep.
So to speed up the story, where I'm going with that is that I started asking for referrals. I started doing things that I wasn't comfortable doing, but then I got the result. And then what happens is you start getting more comfortable, and then you become confident, and then it becomes an expectation.
It's
so
a loop, yep.
If you're listening to this, follow that, because that's true with weightlifting. When you want to work out, it's not comfortable. You're sore. You don't want to do it. You don't have the energy. And next thing you know, it becomes comfortable, and you like to go. And then it becomes mandatory, like you can't miss. And that's really a progression of success. So from there, I started, I took another course. It was $500 called Empowerment: The Key to Sales Success. And that was the course that I would say changed my life and my thinking forever, because I thought I was going to be given sales training when it was all on mindset, our core beliefs, our self-esteem, how we view ourselves, and at the really core, our inner voice. What is our inner voice saying? How is it helping us? How is it serving us? Also, how is it hurting us? What patterns do you have? What's your psychological makeup? You can, and I learned in that course that you can have high self-esteem in one category of your life and very low in another, that there's all these shades of gray, and that everything relative to our self-esteem, because if we want greater results, we know we have to take certain actions to get those results, right? And what I see in most sales training, most organizations, even though I didn't have this early on, is they teach you what actions to do. All right. So if you're overweight and you want to get in shape, the trainer may say, hey, you need to do push, pull, squat, walk fast, eat high protein, low carb diets, eat a gram of protein per your body weight a day, drink a gallon of water. It's very simple to be in great shape and to be fit, right? It's not complicated at all. Well, why is 67% of this country overweight, and why is the obesity rate going through the roof? Is success more of knowing what to do, or is success more of doing what you know? We know the answer to that, right?
Yep.
So that was the beginning of a real deep dive into my own personal psychology. And in the process of doing that, it helped me become a better leader, because I don't think you can be an effective leader, a Yoda type leader, if you don't really understand human psychology, if you don't understand core belief systems, and most importantly, how to help shift them to make them optimal and more in alignment with what your goals are. So the $1 million question was, and I remember I was part of a focus group where we had senior vice presidents of sales, heads of organizations, CEOs, all in a room, and I was just an observant. And my mentor gets up there, he said, talk to me about the qualities and the characteristics of your very best salespeople. And they would say things that everybody says. They're very goal-directed. They're resilient. They're driven. They're passionate. They have good habits, right? They're habitual and they're routine-driven. And they're detail-oriented, right? So they started talking about all these common characteristics, right? And he said, as you look at this list, nobody said our best salespeople were the best rapport builders or closers or the best at qualifying the wants and needs of people or articulating, identifying their pain points. Nobody mentioned sales skills. I asked you the best qualities and characteristics of your top salespeople, and you gave me this: driven, comfort zones, resilient.
Character traits.
Yeah. So he said, let me ask you all a question. How much of your current training and development is on that? And you can hear a pin drop because they began to realize, and you heard a lot of things, okay? You heard people say, well, that's not something you can teach. That's something that one has or one doesn't have. We like to recruit to that. And my mentor said, well, only 2 to 3% of the population has that at a very high level. And that's why your makeup of your salespeople, you're going to have your top 1 or 2 producers, then they're way ahead of the rest of the group because of that. And so it really sparked this question of, well, how do you teach that? And Cam, the unfortunate part about our educational systems is we're teaching social studies and math and reading, all really important stuff. Don't get me wrong. And I value education as much as anybody. However, where our educational system is failing us miserably, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, is they're telling us the story about Orville and Wilbur Wright, in 1908 getting up in the air for 6 seconds, or it's 1906 getting up in the air for 8 seconds. But they didn't tell us that they hand-carved 12,000 wing designs. They didn't tell us that they had to invent the world's first wind tunnel to test their wing design so that it was strong enough to lift somebody in the air, but yet light enough to elevate. And in fact, their wing design is the same wing design that we use today. They didn't talk to us about the importance of failure, okay? And in outside of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, there's a monument that says a dream achieved through dauntless resolution and unconquerable faith. Well, faith and belief are interchangeable words, right? I don't think after failing a year 10 or 12 or 15, I'm sure they heard the things that you may have heard and I have heard early on in my career when we weren't getting the money or the success that we wanted. That we probably heard, Pat, come on over here. Why are you doing this? Because going back to the story, and I'll intertwine things as we go along, but I'll dot I's and cross T's. I went to work for my mentor, and it was amazing, profound training I got every single day. However, selling it, the model that he had, I think I made $15,000 my first year. And I heard so many people say, what are you doing with this guy? Why are you, this guy's like brainwashing you, man. Like you're there, like following this guy making no money. And I loved every single day because to me, I was like learning. I was a sponge. He'd have me till 1 o'clock in the morning in his car, teaching me a principle that exists inside of the book, Think and Grow Rich, what it meant and how to leverage that in my life. He was growing me and I knew it. But yet my loved ones, my friends, my family were all like, what are you doing?
They couldn't see the big picture.
Going back to our educational system, they're not teaching us the lessons behind the story and how important failure is in your overall success. We as human beings are innately, we want instant gratification. We see somebody drive a Mercedes-Benz. We want a sales job. We want to make money. We want to make money now. We want to drive the Mercedes. We want to have that house. We want to have these things happen. There's one thing that you have to be is patient, okay, and responsible as a young entrepreneur. And as I took my son, Patrick, who's a senior at Arizona State, he interned for me, no sales background, no sales experience. We hired a branch in Florida, in the Panhandle of Florida, and his name was Steve Blood that runs the branch down there. And I said, Steve, I'm gonna put a recruiter on you, but I'm gonna be candid with you. It's my son, and he's never recruited before, so I'm gonna pay him $20 an hour. You cover 10, I'll cover the other 10. I need you to have some skin in the game because he's going to be working for you, but I'm not sure how good he's going to be so I'm going to cover the other half. Well, So I sat with my son and I said, Patrick, and all through his childhood, I taught him the lessons, and I put affirmations and tapes and things in his brain about potential, about that we all have unlimited potential, that we all have to have clear goals, a plan to accomplish them, the strategies, the tactics, the processes, but most importantly, the inner belief, right? In it, you have to have a love of people. Because if you don't love people, don't be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
You have to genuinely love people to win. And so I gave him a script. If there's one thing I want you to take away, you have to be scripted, and you got to know those scripts, and you got to practice them, not till you get it right, but until you can't get them wrong. Okay, that's a Jimmy Johnson quote. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. When you do that, it won't sound scripted, etc. Right? 2 all beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, onion, cheese, pickles, and a sesame seed bun is a script, right? So McDonald's sold a lot of Big Macs, with those scripts, and everything they do is scripted. So I gave him a script, and I worked on it, and I'm big on scripting to the point where I build psychology. It's got to be short, but it's got to be really impactful. Especially when you're cold calling. He was going to recruit mortgage loan originators for this particular branch. And boom, day one, he books his first meeting. He's so excited. Like, he can't believe it, because that's going back to success. Like, sometimes you're shocked at your own success. I wasn't shocked, because if you put words together and you deliver those words in a certain way, it will produce a predictable outcome. So, I got him on, and he saw success. And so his self-esteem started growing, because performance and winning grows your belief system, changes your inner voice, right? So he ended up hiring him, and he got him 3 loan originators this summer, and got him a processor, and in essence really built his branch over the summer. He hired him, et cetera. So, as I'm going back and I'm looking, and I'm mixing stories, but I'm bringing this all together. If there's a real entrepreneur opportunity out there, it's somebody to step up and change our educational system. Somebody with big dough to really get away from all the stuff that's going on right now and center in on growing people's self-image, because our self-esteem was created between the ages of 2 and 5 by our well-meaning parents, grandparents, and siblings based on the way they communicated to us, the messages we heard. So hear me out. If little Billy is at the kitchen table and spills milk, and the parent chastises, yells, or screams at Billy for spilling it, well, Billy took action, got negative feedback, and the parent attached that negative feedback to Billy's sense of self-worth based on their demeanor, their face, or even what they said. And we hear all these sayings over the years. It's not what you know, it's who you know. That's the way the ball bounces. That's the way the cookie crumbles, right? And we hear all these messages at an early age. And what I think ends up happening more often than not, in most cases inadvertently, by our well-meaning, awesome parents, is we start to really put together this picture that every time we take action and get positive feedback, I get praise, I feel good. But every time I take action, I get negative feedback, it's a blow to my self-esteem. Other people are winning. Other people are catching the ball. I'm not. Other people are hitting the ball and swinging. I'm not. And so we start to look at negative feedback as a deterrent. And then when that individual becomes a sales professional 20 years later, and they're taught to take action, pick up the phone, dial, and smile, or when they take action on sales calls and they get 15 straight no's, they start to say the negative tapes again. I suck, I'm not good, this isn't for me, maybe I should consider something else, when the reality is you're on your way to winning. Failure is, and I told my son this is where I was going with my son, I said, Patrick, embrace failure. Failure is the spice of life. You have to fail. It's a necessary component of our success. And the more you fail, I said, it doesn't mean repeat failure. It means every single day you have this journal, and after every call, after every day, before you go to bed, ask yourself 3 questions after every sales call, at the end of every day. What I do right, what I do wrong, and what changes do I need to make? When I said this, the prospect hung up on me. When I said this, this happened. What can I do differently to get a different outcome? Let me try something else. And that's what Matthew McConaughey was talking about. Enjoying the tinkering, enjoying the playing with words, with how you're delivering them, and practicing them before you get on stage. Certainly an actor doesn't just wing it. All the actors are scripted, and when you're in sales, I tell you, you've got to be scripted to a point where you're creating a predetermined outcome. You're sequencing people to a predetermined spot. without getting into sales skills, which if you'd like to get into, I could talk about that all day as well. But, when you look at the entrepreneurs today, like, what do you need to win? Okay. The number one thing you need is a mentor. When my mentor told me I wasn't looking for a job out of college, I was looking for a Yoda. He met a guy named Randy Nemec, and that was his Yoda. Joe Gianni was my Yoda. So was a guy named Greg Kasmer, who taught me the art of speaking in front of people and being a platform salesperson, which is a motivational speaking side. I'll come back to that. The first thing you need is a mentor, okay? And the second thing you got to look for is a vehicle. What I've learned going back to the Professional Sales Institute was that my mentor really had a terrible vehicle. He had a great hamburger, but a terrible drive-through. It wasn't a scalable business for others to really grow their incomes and compound it quickly.
Yep.
And that's what led me to the speaking platform, because I'm like, I really love sales training. I really love empowerment training, self-esteem training. I love helping change people's lives. Like my mentor helped change my life, because what he taught me really ended up in the right vehicle is where I was able to make multi-six-figure income in my mid to late 20s. The model was platform speaking in front of mortgage and real estate professionals. Instead of getting in front of one person at a time, I'm getting in front of 100 to 200 people a week. And so when I looked at that, we had cold callers, we had marketing dollars going into a hotel room, front-end speaker comes in, offers amazing value. This is no different than internet marketing today. Give free value. Give free value, give free value, inspire people, give them tangible things that they can use that day, whether they purchase from you or not. And then always have an upsell ready to go.
Right.
So very predictable, scripted, internalized, and designed to take the audience to a predetermined spot, but also adding value. So when you look at that, the book that inspired me, you talk about recommending books. There's two books I recommend for all entrepreneurs. Number one is The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
That's a great one.
Because he really talks about, scripting your entire business, right? Make it predictable and duplicatable, because then you can take average talent, plug them into a highly successful process that will produce a predictable outcome. Well, you can take mediocre talent and make them great. And Think and Grow Rich is really for upstairs, the universal laws, the principles, law of cause and effect, law of attraction, the law of goal direction, right? By the way, the first 5 years of me being in business, I didn't listen to the radio. I had tapes, cassette tapes. And if you can get your hands on Brian Tracy's The Psychology of Success, don't walk, run at that series. It's mandatory. All my kids have to listen to this. The Psychology of Success by Brian Tracy is not the most gregarious motivator, but his content is so spot on, so meaningful when you look at those principles. But over the years, as a teacher of people, being great at selling and leading, I've really come to boil things down into a process.
Yeah.
Number one starts with goals. What do you want to have happen? What are your personal goals? What are your professional goals? So if you got a piece of paper and a pen, as you're listening to this, write this down. You have to have personal goals. That's your driving force. That's your why, because you don't get up to make money. You get up to create a new backyard, a new pool, an oasis. You get up to buy that Corvette you want. You get up to create a legacy income for your kids, so when you pass, you have something to pass on. What is your passion? What is your driving force?
Your why.
Because when those walls come up, and they come up all day long, you got a decision to make. The only thing that will get you through that wall is chasing those personal goals, because the pain of not accomplishing that will exceed the pain of the failure required to actually have them, right? So then it's the professional goals, okay? Most people, when they think about goals, they write down, I want to eliminate credit card debt. I want to make, $500,000 a year, right? Don't start there. Start with, I want to travel to Paris. I want to go to Greece. I want to bungee jump. I want to, climb the Alps. I want to, ski, these mountains. What are those things? Because that's what drives our emotion. And I will tell you, as I journey through life and I see all the things on Facebook and social media, so many people are going through life without any sense of purpose because they don't write their goals down. You've all heard the Yale study, I'm sure, that only 2% of people are goal-directed, written specific goals every single day.
2%?
Everybody knows to write goals down. And yeah, they followed people around, this group around for 25 years, I think it was. And don't quote me, but I think that's the number. And what they found is that 2% had accumulated more wealth than the other 98% combined.
Yeah.
Okay. But they were also healthier, happier. They were more spiritually inclined, et cetera. They just lived well-balanced lives. And so the only difference between that group and the rest was they were written clear, gold ready, knew where they were going, and they were going to get there. And you've heard and talked about the law of attraction. What's the law of attraction? The law of attraction says you will attract positive or negative people, situations, circumstances, opportunities, the things you think about most based on the thoughts that dominate your mind. Every listener here can look back to that, something you were so passionate about. It was dating that girl or that man or that boy or having, starting in soccer field or starting, quarterback in football. You imagine that. You became obsessed. My good friend Mike DiNardo used to say, obsession is a term that lazy people use to describe those that are truly committed. Obsession's a very good word. I love it. You have to be obsessed with winning. When you do that, when those walls come up, the personal goals got to be there. The professional goals are second. Then once the goals are crystallized, then it's the plan. How am I going to get there? Okay. Most people think, man, first thing I do is I got to go raise money. I didn't. I never have. You don't need to raise money. That shouldn't be your first thing, because if you don't have systems, processes, strategies, tactics, and everything laid out, you've got no business raising money to begin with anyway, right? Because you're going to spend it all. It's going to go away. So what is your business plan? And now, I wouldn't go online and look at these business plan templates. I've always found them to be garbage. I would just sit down and say, where are the vehicles? Where's it going to come from? Am I going to go social media? Am I going to go relationship? Am I going to use the telephone? What's my marketing plan? And then I have to have a presentation. I have to have follow-up. I have to have a CRM. Yep. Because the three things that salespeople do every single day to win, top salespeople, is prospect, run appointments, and follow up. Everything else is administrative tasks and should be handled by administrative people that make administrative incomes, right? You have to start viewing yourself as the heart surgeon that's coming in, and everything's prepped by the people that are making less money than you are.
Love that analogy.
And you go in, you cut the heart, you do your surgery, you sew it back together, and you walk out the door.
And you get paid the most for that.
Yes. Yep. And so many people, they want to do the beginning, the middle, the end, but really what it is call reluctance. You don't want to do that, and you don't have to do that, because you can look at somebody and say, I can pay somebody this amount of money per hour to handle that. That'll free up X amount of time. How many more sales calls can I run? Prospecting, running appointments, and following up. You can easily justify
Love
that.
it.
But so many people will mistake what they feel is busy with avoiding the phone, avoiding prospecting. The goals, personal, professional goals, the business plan. How am I going to get there? Okay. Think about a college football coach, and some of the best coaching I received. I was part of coaching college football at St. John Fisher University, at Webster High School, around some of the guys. If these guys were in business, they would be monsters in business, because they ran the machine and it produced state championship teams at Webster High School. They'd be unbelievable business people because they followed the same recipe, right? Goals, the plan, then it's the skills, the strategies, the tactics, the processes, okay? So goals, plans, skills. Within that skills is the strategies, tactics, and processes, all those things that are going to make those business plan numbers work. And then underneath that, really the root of your money tree is confidence in your inner belief. Are you willing to go through failures and setbacks like a vengeance and make that just an understanding thing that you're going to fail every single day, and you're going to push through those failures? Ask yourself the habit of daily reflection. Again, what I do right, what I do wrong, and how do I tweak this to make it a little bit better? You're going to start to find that there's predictability and a duplication in what you do, and then you're going to start to win. And there's a rite of passage with abundance. It's why so few have it, because they just won't go through enough failure to get to the other side. Now I'll kick it back to you.
There were so many gold nuggets in that, and there's so many directions that I could take it in. But what do you think, if you had to narrow it down to like one thing after everything you just said, what's the differentiator between a good salesperson and someone who's truly great at sales?
I brought this up with my sales team this morning because I have an individual on my team that is clearly, okay, all he does is cold call. He books 3 appointments a day. That's what he did. Okay. Which I'm going to dive into this in a minute. All right. So he books appointments for presenters. What I figured out, what I learned early on as a leader in this business, is that most salespeople are not disciplined enough to prospect every single day. In an ideal sales career, you're a real estate agent, insurance professional. Again, most people are given product training and never get any guidance on what to do in meetings, right? They don't prospect. Tom Galisano figured this out. Actually, Walter Turk was the guy that really changed the model in Paychex, and he was their national sales manager. He figured, you know what, if they're not going to prospect, let me separate church and state. Let me get a call center together and have them pound the phones, have them call on accountants. I'm going to bring the out-of-town guy or girl in a briefcase in to close that sale. That way, the presenters were really just, they were going in to present and close.
They're the heart surgery. Yeah.
But they always had appointments. They always had, the key in sales, guys, it's book 15, run 10. You run 2 appointments a day. I don't care what sales career, you're multi-6, 7-figure income. I don't care if you can slice and dice. And by the way, if you can't realize that, you're in the wrong vehicle, doing the wrong things. Go find a vehicle where you can run 10 appointments a week and make multi-6 and 7-figure income. I did the same thing, when I met Revolution. Interesting story there, because I want to go back to failure, because I saw early success speaking, because it was a very predictable model. And then 2008, 2009 hit. So at that point, I'm 34, 35 years old, and I was on the top of the world. I had a huge house, I had boats and nice cars, and just on top of the world. And thought making money was so easy. I couldn't stop. And then I got smacked down. Sat with my attorney, my business partner, and said, hey, this really is falling off the cliff fast. The mortgage industry that we're in is the reason for this economic collapse. So few people are coming to our events, and the ones that do show up, they're coming for the free Danish and the free training if they can get one thing, because they were all going to banks and going in the short sale world. It was unlike anything. Hopefully I'll never see that again. I don't think I will.
Yeah.
And so I had to fire 50 employees, lock the door, close it down, and start over. And we always thought it was going to come back. So we had all this savings. We just invested our savings into payroll and to wait out the storm. So I didn't file bankruptcy, but I had no money. And I didn't freak out. And even worse, because we did 6-month coaching contracts, I had to fire all my coaches. So guess who had to coach and fulfill the remaining part? Me and my business partner. So we sat in an office with no employees, ourselves, needing to get another job or start another business or do something else. But I will say that I'm very proud of the fact that I delivered every minute of coaching on every contract that we signed. And in that process, an individual asked me, Pat, what would it take for you to come down here in Florida to help me turn my mortgage company around? And it was the big guy upstairs saying, here's your reward. Because this guy was offering me at least $250,000 to get back on my feet again, right? And he didn't know I was crashing at the time. So it's an interesting story, because when I was going through that, my wife, Chelsea, she would bring me lunch every day, and not to sound graphic, but I had a bathroom 15 steps away, and there was 5 or 6 Gatorade bottles filled with urine, because I had to go from one call to the next, and I didn't even have time to get out of my desk.
Wow.
And it was 7 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, working for free, no money, 3 kids. And
Holy
here we are.
Shit.
Right. Most people don't know that story. I don't divulge it. If people ask, I tell them, but that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And I didn't know it at the time. And I didn't have self-pity. I just started working on the solution. I fired up a little technology company. I was making $22,000 a month in this mortgage company, another 20 from this one, soon enough. But I was in such debt that I was still having to go
climb
back
out,
and climb out of that thing. So needless to say, I went back into speaking. The market healed a little bit, and we reconvened. And I was coaching people and doing seminars and events again with a lot less people, employee-wise. And so I came to that decision, this is what I do. This is what I love to do. But I'm going to pursue. I still have bigger goals. I wasn't making the money I really wanted to make. I knew that I had the talent to do something really, really big and strong. And this is where the law of attraction comes in, because during that time frame of the company closing down and me rebuilding 2010, 11, 12, 13, I'm coaching this gal named Tammy Goodman. And she was from Columbus, Ohio. She saw me speak in 2006, became a client. She was one of those people I took on when the company closed and I was coaching for free, right? And we became really good friends, but I would coach her on and off for 14 years. In 2019, she called me, and at the time I was doing, in my world, not great, okay, kind of just like, what's the next play? What's the big play, right? And she called me and says, Pat, I'm thinking about leaving retail side of the mortgage and joining a P&L model. I look at this company called Revolution Mortgage. Will you let me know what you think? I said, yeah, sure. I said, I really need to talk to you about the leadership team because I love the model. It's a franchise concept, revenue-based instead of bit-based. It's more of a capitalistic approach versus the socialistic approach to mortgage banking, which is I'll pay you, 1 point and we'll handle everything for you. This is, you get to manage 3 points and you call the shots. Loved it, but I need to know who the leaders are, because if the leadership team's not there, they can squander the money and they can ramp up and shut down, et cetera, so on and so forth. So I talked to the president for 2 hours. She introduced me to the president. We had a wonderful conversation. He says, Pat, we'd like to fly you into Columbus. I called Tammy, by the way. I said, spectacular. I said, I love what I hear and see, but I'm actually going to Columbus. I'm going to look at their platform, their infrastructure, et cetera. So I went to Columbus, Ohio, and those guys really impressed me with what their vision was. But they were a startup, okay, which I love. If I was in front of Nike, I would not have interest in selling Nike. You already made it. I've always been driven by looking back in my career and saying, look what I built. Yeah. Not, hey, we're already winning. Let me be part of this winning team. The reason why I chose St. John Fisher Football University is because they were 0-9 the year they were recruiting me, right? So there's a lesson here, a major lesson that I want to impart to your audience. When I left Ohio, they asked me if I'd be a referral partner, meaning they knew I had a lot of clients in the mortgage industry that were perfect fit for their business model. They said, we'll pay you X, okay, on an ongoing perpetual residual basis if you bring us volume. I said, fair enough. I'm doing events. I'll meet people. They have to do certain volume to qualify for a P&L. I knew what to look for. Well, I got them $1 billion of production in 7 months. And then they called me back and said, we'd like you to be the guy to run this thing. And here's the point. My goal was to continue building and rebuilding and going after coaching. And I was starting to get Ray Higdon. You may know Ray Higdon if you're big into social media. He's in Naples, Florida. He was a platform speaker like me. He changed his model to internet marketing based, social media based, and just went on to do amazing things. He runs an amazing podcast as well. And he talked to me. We were in Naples, said, Pat, this is the direction I think you should go. This is what you're good at. And here's where the money is now, because it kind of was leaving the live audience sector. And remind you, when I met Revolution, it was right before COVID, when I was getting ready to do 96 live events and didn't know COVID was right beyond the door. And so when you live a clean living and your priorities and you love your spouse and you love your kids, the big guy upstairs won't guide you in the wrong way. And he knew the storm was coming because I was getting ready to invest in a big seminar series. And then Tammy comes along and says, what do you think about me going to this company, crazy. Revolution? I meet Revolution and I pop $1 billion in there. They asked me to run it. And here we are. We'll close, close to $4 billion this year. Wow. So I never thought I would be here. I never thought I would work for somebody other than myself. Although I'm a corporate executive, the way we designed it, I still have this recruiting company that I have independent contractors through. So it's still entrepreneurial, right?
Absolutely.
I've never made money on anything that I don't drive and get a piece of whatever me and my team does. And so it's still very entrepreneurial. And people ask the question, number one, Pat, why would you leave doing that to go into partner with the guys that are just starting off the mortgage industry? That's a hard thing to do. Yeah. The chances of I'm making are very slim to none. I said, not really, because they got me. Okay. Because if they got a good platform in the back end, I know I can build the front end. So it went on, and to go back again, earlier I mentioned the guy that did nothing but cold call for me. He cold called. I built a model. I got cold callers. I got presenters and closers. We fly them to corporate. Well, that gentleman that did nothing but book 3 appointments a day for me every single day, I write him checks every single month for $50,000+. So, and he's just getting going. My goal is to get him to $100,000 a month, right? So doing nothing but booking 3 appointments a day.
Wow.
So I always separated the prospectors, the presenters always had appointments, and then you bring in the third base to home closers to close a deal.
All the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. So, that's an assembly line approach, and that's what I've always believed, and I've always loved that model.
What's something you know now that you wish you knew in your 20s?
Something I know now that I wish I knew in my 20s. I'm on my second marriage, okay? My first wife is a beautiful human being. I heard John Wooden say this. He said, you have to marry the right person. That's a big part of your success. It's actually in the book, Think and Grow Rich, right? What to look for. How do you define common goals, common beliefs, and common interests? Because if I was going here and my spouse is going there, problems occur. And I don't regret where I'm at with my wife and 5 kids. I've got 3 with my first wife and 2 with my second wife. And my ex-wife is very happy and doing well and remarried. And I will tell you that that's an important part of our success, to really pick wisely and to really know what to look for when you look at a partner. There's a lot of people, you start with attraction, physical attraction, then you're like, well, this is fun, you're funny, or this, that, but you really got to look at, where am I going in life, and is this person going to join me in that path? And I'll be honest with you, entrepreneurship is not for every spouse, right? Because, even my current wife, Chelsea, she saw some daunting times. She saw cars showing up to repossess our only car we had at a certain point. When I was digging, scratching, clawing, and she had to hang in there and be like, is this guy going to make it or what? I mean, but she really was very supportive, and she always believed in me, and she always believed, and she went through some really, really, I have to believe, some difficult thought processes of whether she was going to double down on this guy, Pat Fenton, or not. She never wavered and stood by my side, and did a really unbelievable job with the kids along the way and cleared my path. But she also chipped in whatever, she's such a smart gal, also chipped in anything I needed work-wise, right? Did she just Call of Duty, and we both collectively built that together. So that's one thing I would be...
Pick the right partner.
Yeah, I really would be mindful of that. Outside of that, I always knew I needed a mentor and a coach. I always knew I needed to develop every single day, that training is not a one-time thing. It's a lifelong journey. So because I had such early guidance, I really, looking back, I don't really have too many things that come to mind to say, what's the one thing I wish I knew then that, I could put in place and accelerate that path faster.
That makes sense.
Not, I would just simply say, patience would probably be my number one thing. If I were to say one thing, it's my impatience that gets me there because I want it. But it's also something you really need to have. And I've come to learn that in the game of golf, is be patient,
Me
right?
too.
Be patient.
Yes.
And so it really applies to life. It's coming. It's coming.
Goals for the future for Pat. Like what's next for you? Where do you see all of this going?
Well, there's other people involved in this decision, but if it were me, I'd help this company get to about 7 to 8 billion. And I'm going to do my darnest to push the CEO and president to get a private equity firm involved, buy out 49%, give 51% back to the branches, create an ESOP, and then cash out, but also stay involved and to continue being involved. But, isn't that our dream, to build something and sell it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Build something and sell it. I want to go back to coaching little kids football. And that's what I want to retire doing. I want to play a little bit more golf. And for me, it's 6, 7, 8 more years, maybe 10 tops as far as working. And then I want to just dedicate the rest of my life to growing kids and growing entrepreneurs and doing free training and helping people, realize their full potential.
That's a beautiful thing, man. Yep. Can't think of a better way than to leave it on that, man. Thank you so much there was so much there that I didn't even really have to talk much. There's a lot of things that you said specifically that I'm thinking my wheels are turning, that I'm going to talk to my team about in terms of actual sales processes, because we're trying to really double down on sales this year, and maybe we can set up another meeting with you and we can talk with the team outside of this. But I think there's a lot there that can be applied to what we're doing. So
awesome. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, Cam. We'll come back anytime.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I hope you found value in this show. If you did, please share with a fellow entrepreneur who is starting something of their own, is venturing off into this crazy world. This is a show that I wish I had at the beginning of my journey, and I'm just trying to pass down that information to the younger generation. So hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we will catch you in the next episode. Take care. Peace.